Today we're making Northern Irish potato bread, or as my husband calls it, tabby bread. It's delicious on its own as a snack, but it's even better tucked into a soda for a hearty breakfast. Let's get cooking. To make potato bread, of course, we have to start with potatoes. I'll be giving you the amounts I'm using as we go along. Full recipe is in the description, and of course you can scale that up or down as you want. So these are 2 pounds worth of potatoes, peeled, boiled, and riced. Use a potato masher if you want, but definitely let these cool at least to room temperature, otherwise it'll be a little hard on the hands. To this, I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of butter. Normally when I cook, I just use regular old butter, but for these, I do break out the Kerrygold, and so in that goes. To that, we'll also add about 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. I'm using kosher salt. If you've got table salt, you might want to do just a little bit less. You can always add salt. Tough to take it away. And so we're just going to stir that to mix the butter and the salt in with the potato, at least a little bit. And the next thing we'll do is add flour. For this much potato, I'll wind up using about 1.5 cups of flour. I'm going to add that a bit at a time, maybe about 1/3 of that at a time, and stir. For the first 2 additions, I'll be able to manage with the spoon, and after that, we're going to need to get our hands in there. And other than cooking oil, this is all you're going to need for your potato bread. All right, got some of that flour incorporated. More. And I know it's frustrating when traditional recipes tell you to just mix until there's enough, to get the consistency, or to mix until there's enough. But this is one of those recipes. So I'll be showing you how it looks as we go along. But individual potatoes vary, and some are just going to need a little more flour to hold together than others. So I've added probably about 2/3 of my flour here, and you can see it's kind of crumbly. It's definitely not holding together yet. I'll be adding the rest and then getting my hands into that. And while we're at it, because this comes together so quickly, I'm going to go ahead and heat a large skillet. You can use a non-stick skillet for this, cast iron, whatever. I've got some oil in that, and that's what we'll be cooking our potato bread in. But once my hands get in there, things get messy, and then they'll be ready really quick. So we want our pan to be at least most of the way warm before, by the time we're rolling this out. All right. So this is how the dough looks. You can see I can squeeze it and it holds together. It's a little stuck to my hands, but not too much. All right, I'm not having huge globs of dough stuck between my fingers or anything. And so that gives us a pretty good idea of the texture it needs to be to get rolled out. So we're gonna just turn this out. We're going to give it maybe just another couple of kneads. Feel free to add more flour as required. And then I'm going to divide this in half just to make it a little bit easier to roll out. I don't want to roll all of it out at once because it's just kind of dry out on the top and stick to the counter on the bottom, and that's no good. A little more flour down here to work with. All right, so I'm going to take this other half, and you can really just pat this until it's a little bit thinner at first. It's not as elastic as like a bread dough, so it doesn't need really, or it doesn't roll really smoothly. All right, that's pretty good. And now I'm going to go ahead and roll that out a little bit. And again, it's sort of, roll is maybe a bit euphemistic, it smushes, but smushing works. And we're going to want this to be, a little, just a touch thinner than 1/4 of an inch. That works out, I believe, to about 4 millimeters or so. This is still a little bit thick, but before it gets all stuck on the bottom, I'm going to take my bench scraper underneath, slide that around a bit. Maybe even if I'm feeling really brave, I'll try and turn that over. Again, not as elastic as a bread dough, so be careful doing stuff like that. All right, don't worry about a little bit of flour being on the top there. That won't wind up tasting floury because that's going to cook. All right, I'm going to keep rolling. And as far as shape goes, it depends on what you want it to be. I'm just going to wind up with rough rectangles, partly because we eat this with Northern Irish soda bread, and I make that into untraditional rectangle shape. Normally it's 1/4 of a circle. All right, so I make these kind of to match that same shape, and all that's because we'll take sausages and split it and put those in those kind of rectangular bricks of soda bread. But do whatever works. This can be totally irregular. It all goes down the same way, and it's pretty good stuff. All right, so I think that's about the thickness I want it to be. I'm gonna brush my hands off and check my oil, and we will get these cut into pieces and slide them into the pan. I'm slicing my potato bread using my handy bench scraper as well. Obviously, nothing fancy needed here. A good old-fashioned butter knife would do the trick. And I'll use the same scraper to gently lift these guys off the counter. Sometimes they need a little nudge. And we're going to slide, here's one there. All right, and we're going to slide each one into our pan with, it's heated on medium, with just some vegetable oil in there. Don't be afraid of putting too much oil in. These are a little bit thirsty. You do want them to get nice and golden brown though. We're not going to get them real dark, because typically what we'll do is cook them and then we will reheat them in that pan again when it's time to actually eat our sodas. So a lot of times I'll do this the night before we're going to have a big brunch. So in these go. And don't want to crowd my pan, so I'll just put 4 in for now. There they are. I'm gonna let them cook and show you how they look when they get turned. Our first pan of potato bread is done. You can see that they're browned on the edges and a little bit golden in the centers. And if we turn those over, all right, we can see the same on the other side. So they are ready to go onto a plate and cool while we make the rest. And the last of our potato bread is done in the pan. We're going to put those on a plate, let that cool all the way, and slide it into the fridge overnight, ready for its soda in the morning. We hope you try this out, know you'll love it, and check back every Friday at 4 o'clock for a new video.